Hello, my name is Casey Farm, and I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for the College of Public Health and Human Sciences at Oregon State University. My featured guest today is a 2020 OSU Alumni Fellow, Dr. Rebecca Hernandez. Dr. Hernandez received her Ph.D. in Human Development and Family Studies from OSU in 2005, has an MPA from Portland State University, and currently works at George Fox University as the Associate Provost for Academic Success. Her Alumni Fellows Talk is titled Diversity and Inclusion in Higher Education, and it will be held live virtually on Thursday, October 22nd at 10 a.m. She will also return the next day on October 23rd at noon to be part of a panel discussion featuring all of the 2020 OSU Alumni Fellows, along with OSU President Dr. F. King Alexander, for a discussion on leadership and changes. To learn more and to register, please visit the website osualum.com/fellows. But let's get to know Dr. Hernandez first. Welcome, Dr. Hernandez. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Hello.
How did your life's journey end up bringing you to OSU?
Actually, there's a couple of reasons that I ended up at Oregon State University, and I'm pretty excited about remembering both of them. I've been thinking about this for a while and thought about that. I ended up coming to Oregon State because of a particular person, actually, Dr. Clara Pratt. She was the Hallie Ford Distinguished Chair. She did a lot of work with a lot of consulting work, and I was working for Marion County Children and Families Commission at the time, and she was doing a lot of work with us on issues of children, supporting families, that sort of thing. And I met her, and she said, you should really think about going to get your doctorate degree. And up to that point, I'd never thought about it. And so that's kind of how I started with that, and thought it was actually a really interesting story in that she was very insistent that I should apply. And in the Hispanic culture, it would be very rude of me to keep saying no. So I just thought to myself, if I'll take the entrance exam, I can't remember what it was called, but if I did that, if she, and then I failed, I'm sure I was going to fail miserably. And then she would just be so embarrassed for me, she would never bring it up again. Well, I actually did pretty well on that exam, got some good scholarships. And next thing I know, I'm at Oregon State in a program that I never thought I'd be in. That's how I
And then you ended up getting your PhD.
I got my PhD. So yeah, that was one of the reasons that I did that. And the second was probably not as flattering, but I realized that I was working in public service, in nonprofit work, and I was building programs. And I was finding that a lot of programs required what they called, you could only apply for grants that had peer-reviewed programs.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought, what is a peer-reviewed program? I'm a first-generation college student, and I didn't know any of these things. So I researched it, or I looked it up, Googled it, and found it basically meant that someone had written an article saying it was a good program. And I thought, I need to figure out how to get into this racket because I need to get funding for our programs, and that's what I need to do. So I noticed they all had PhDs and thought, okay, that would also be helpful. So those are the two reasons I got into it.
All right, this next question has two parts. You have 3 titles at George Fox University: Associate Provost for Academic Success, Chief Diversity Officer, and the Director of the Center for Peace and Justice. That seems like a pretty significantly broad scope and sizable amount of responsibilities. So there are my 2 questions for you. How do all of these responsibilities work together toward achieving common goals? And then what does a typical day look like for your work? And we're talking about pre-COVID typical rather than this current typical.
Yeah. Well, they're both very busy, that's for sure. The 3 work together really closely because, number one, we're a smaller school. So we're about 4,000 students overall between undergrad and graduate. So I think that has something to do with it, although the work is also very connected together. So if you think about academic success, the literature is very clear about students of color, first-generation students, students with low socioeconomic status, tend to be students who may have academic barriers for success in college. Not because of themselves, but also a lot of times because our systems are built in ways that support a particular kind of student, but not others. And so academic success, diversity work, and justice work are very much intricately connected. And so as they all 3 move together in that work, we look at systems. So then academic success as an associate provost, I really oversee programs that have a lot to do with how, what keeps people out and what brings people in. And so working with other departments, helping our disabilities programs, our diverse intercultural life house, things like that, those sorts of things that are directly affecting students, the classroom experience, the faculty experience, those sorts of things, has a lot to do with, then it's a diversity issue, because what do we need to do to address that issue? And sometimes it comes through the curriculum, and so there's a curriculum diversity committee that we work through that and begin to talk about how to deal with those issues. And then the Center for Peace and Justice, we're a small Quaker institution. And so Quakers, if anyone really knows about that, they were really known for working on peace and justice issues all the way through. So the Quakers were very much involved early on with with women getting the right to vote, getting rid of slavery, those sorts of things. And so as a Quaker movement, those same principles continue through. So I think they're very connected, and that helps a lot because it's all that same framework, and it's just different ways of working on issues. And one helps build on the other. So sometimes when I want to think about making a change, or we need to make a change in a certain area, having the chief diversity officer say that doesn't maybe have the same authority as the associate provost. So that helps a lot.
Yeah. And so what does that typical day look like then for you, bouncing back and forth between, these different hats that you wear?
Well, like, for example, today, my first meeting was about a subcommittee on the academic outcomes that we're looking for in classroom design. And then from there, I'm meeting with you. But then from here, I meet with students who are getting the Peace Scholars. And so we're going to talk about their projects for their scholarship, because we also give out scholarships out of the Center for Peace and Justice. And then from there, I'll go to a meeting about another meeting about the Title IX, because I'm also a member of the Title IX task force. And then from there, we'll have a student presentation. So I'll be looking at that. So it's kind of just a lot of touching points with a lot of people throughout the day. It'll be about between 7 to 8 different shifts in meetings, contacts, those sorts of things. And in the evening, I do a lot of email as well, catching up, reading different things. We're doing a lot of work just to kind of keep things going. So my biggest joy is meeting with students. So I'm excited about that today. We'll be meeting in a COVIDly appropriate room, but it does give me a chance to at least meet students directly. And I do miss that part of it. But I also work with faculty, so I'll meet with faculty quite a bit. And then I will also meet with administration. So yesterday, my day ended with meeting with the president from 4 to 5, kind of going over what we're doing within the diversity work. And then before that was a meeting between my another associate provost and I. And then before that, we met with all the executive deans of all the different departments. And then before that, I can't remember, just meeting after meeting after meeting. So that's kind of my life.
I mean, you're talking about, your love of working with students, and you've been in an academic setting for a real long time. What do you now know regarding the academic experience that you wish you could have told the student version, and that could be any one of them, for yourself?
Yeah. I think I went to college I graduated early, so I was 17 when I went to college, and I went away from Idaho, where I was growing up, to Florida. My parents were migrant workers before they settled out, what we call settled out in Idaho. So going to college was a new experience for all of us, and I didn't know what to expect. And I think what I would say to my younger self, to that person many years ago, or to a student today, is that seeking out, asking questions is your number one tool. And it's okay to ask questions. In fact, college is the place to explore and to ask lots and lots of questions. Things from what is financial aid and how do you access that? What are grants? What are scholarships? Those sorts of things. How do I pay for this experience? Then also how and where can I get help? Because I'm afraid of, maybe I'm embarrassed about my writing is not as strong as I'd like it to be, or as my colleagues, I think other students are smarter than me. But that's not really true. Maybe they'd study differently. Maybe they have tools that we haven't accessed yet. They're accessing things that I've not done. So I think for our students, I really say to them, explore and ask for what you want and need. And, worst you can get is a no. So it's that encouraging people to have some confidence in asking questions and not hiding from things.
Do you run into the imposter syndrome a lot with students that you work with? And how do you kind of combat that?
I still had the imposter syndrome myself. It's
I
not,
think we all kind of do.
we all do. And I think that's the human experience, right? That we all have that. And unfortunately, sometimes even comparisons, when I'm talking to you, I looked at the other alumni fellows and thought, what am I doing here? And so we all have that. And I think that's just something that, not that it stops me from doing things, it really doesn't. It's the idea that I acknowledge that I have it and then I put it aside and say, you know what, we're all human, we're all doing our passion. And I think that's important. So what I say to students is, stop looking at other people and really think about what is your passion? What do you believe you're built for? What is the thing that you were called to do? And here, as a faith-based institution, we believe is God. And so for us, what is it that God has called you to do? And what are you built for that, that you just can't imagine not doing? That's what you should be chasing and going after and actually doing. And so for me, exploring issues of justice is really critical. It's just how I'm built. It's not something that I really said, oh, I'm going to do this. But I just feel like that comes out of me. Like, how can I help other people? How can I make things better for who I can? That's also a challenge, right? You can't always do that with everybody or with every issue, but trying to balance that and say, okay. And then I also narrow that down over the years. I realize I'm really good at systems and thinking about how do we address systems change. And as that has become clearer and clearer over the years, I don't feel I'm so far away from where I started out at 23 years old as a public school teacher. So it's kind of the same passion, just expressed in different ways.
So mentioning the Fellows Program, so you are a part of the 2020 Alumni Fellows Program, which honors alumni who have distinguished themselves in their professions and in their communities.
Yeah.
Although there are several different kinds of fellowships in academia, part of the origin of the word fellow comes from late Old English meaning partner or colleague, one who lays down money in a joint enterprise. And although it's usually grant money that we're talking about, that is down in the joint enterprise in an academic setting. What has been a favorite collaboration of yours with a colleague or colleagues during your career?
Yeah, I've had lots and lots of great colleagues along the way. One of them, I think, early on that I learned a lot from was Dr. Pratt, when we did some work on building community mobilization efforts and outcome measures, and how do you address, how do we help community organizations not only do the kinds of things that they do around community change, but then also measure that change over time. So that was a really big effort. Another one that is really one of the premier pieces that I'm really excited about was the work that I did with Dr. Nancy Glass at Oregon Health Sciences University School of Nursing. At the time, she's now at Johns Hopkins and is really world renowned, but she actually worked on domestic violence and the issues of partner violence, among high-risk women. And part of that was we did a study that focused on identifying women who worked in service industries, and then how they were dealing with abuse, partner abuse. And so I was assigned to find and to interview, not just me, but lead a team to interview over 100 women of color, specifically Latino women who spoke Spanish. And so to do that, it just took all of my skill to kind of call on all the people I knew, all my friends, colleagues, et cetera, across the state. And we traveled, we'd go to Hood River, we'd go into all kinds of places to interview these women. And I think that was one of my most incredible collaborations, because what I got from that was these women overall had a sense of, why do you want to talk about this issue? What do you want to come from this? Their sense of dignity, their sense of hope that they wanted this partner violence to stop. And they wanted to share that with other women and to give them a sense of hope that they could get out of that themselves. And so I think those kinds of pieces that not only help benefit a particular group of people that you're working with, but also benefit the community or help other people, because out of their own pain, they're helping others, has been really powerful. And so I think about that along the way. One of the other collaborations I've done more recently has been with Dr. Yoon Tran, who was here at George Fox and is now in New Jersey. And we did a whole piece on how to support faculty of color, new faculty of color, through a mentoring program. And that was pretty powerful in the sense that, we want to reach people who want to become professors or who want to be in this work at Oregon State or at other places. How do you really support that? How do you help them to become part of the community, to be successful, to not pay a lot of cultural taxation, which, faculty of color have to do a lot of, and deal with all of the other issues that come with that? How do we help faculty to be successful and to be seen in their own right and in their good work? So that's kind of the stuff that I've been really working on, and those are some great people that I've worked with.
Yeah, that sounds pretty impactful, and I could see why the power of collaboration definitely in the projects that you've been working on, something that's very probably personally fulfilling. Kind of leads me to my next question. So you're part of this those fellows team, but why did you choose to come back and accept and be part of the fellows team and be a 2020 alumni fellow?
Yeah, well, number one, I never know what I'm getting into until I get into it. So let's just say that. So the other part of it was really that Dr. Kate McTavish in the department there, I'm not think they changed the name, so I apologize. I don't know the exact name, but she was actually on my committee, my dissertation committee. She was very new when I was finishing my dissertation, fairly young, fairly new. I saw her as like the next level of what I could reach. She was a brand new assistant professor, has just done her dissertation a few years before, was doing research on things that I thought were really interesting and relevant, a lot of community engagement work. So she's been a mentor and has also been a colleague that I've watched over the years, and we keep in touch on a regular basis. She's the one who nominated me for this and called me and said, I want you to do this. And so I take a lot of advice. I take the advice of people like that and say, okay, I'll do it. That sounds fine. I'll do that. So I think it's that ongoing connection. I also work a lot with Ann Gillis, who does the Search Advocate program over in, I think it's in Human Resources, I'm not exactly sure, but she's been also a wonderful leader in how to develop programs that support and encourage diverse faculty to come into higher education and to work with us. So I find that this connection to Oregon State has continued over the years. I go there for advice, your master extension program, master gardener, those sorts of things. I failed at gardening, but I don't blame them. I think it's just certainly my fault that my plants continue to die. But anyway, all that to say that I find that Oregon State continues to be giving and giving to me, and I'm happy to give back. It's a great institution. I'm very proud to be a graduate of Oregon State University.
Well, we're so happy you decided to come back. So that's great. It's a good two-way street. It's a win-win, very symbiotic.
Yeah.
All right, so there's something a little bit different.
Sure.
If you were not going to be doing what you are doing right now, or just even like a career in academia,
Right.
What career field would you have chosen and why?
Yeah, I've actually done a lot of things over my lifetime. I've actually started out as community organizer, community organization, so a nonprofit. So I think I would be an administrator in a nonprofit because I've done that before. I actually have worked directly with people. My area of kind of research and expertise has been around communities of color, specifically Latino communities, and looking at social determinants of health disparities among Latinos specifically. So I've worked with housing organizations. I've worked for community or county government. I've worked for state government. I've worked with other organizations that are nonprofits that really impact communities of color directly. And I feel like that's probably what I would be doing. There are times I think, oh, I should have done that, especially after a hard class or something. But I really do enjoy working with communities for the most part. That's what I would be doing.
Okay. You mentioned the social determinants of health. I know that is a phrase that we use a lot in the public health field, and I think that the public is becoming more and more aware of kind of what that is. But can you talk a little bit more about what the social determinants of health is or are, and kind of how that affects people on a daily basis?
Sure. Social determinants are things that are built in the environment that either are barriers or if they're built into good areas, into areas you'll see them. So for example, sidewalks. that sounds like a really strange thing, but sidewalks that are safe for people to walk. So we know exercise is really important, right? And we tell people, doctors tell that all the time. I get it all the time from my own doctor. But I happen to live in a neighborhood that has really good sidewalks, has lighting, dogs are behind fences, those kinds. I live in a really safe neighborhood. And so I'm aware of that other people may not. And so those kinds of things really matter. My grocery store is less than a half a mile from my house. And then the next one is a little bit further down. So there's a lot of variety in terms of accessing healthy foods, reasonably priced, those sorts of things. A Trader Joe's, which is maybe a little bit more expensive. I don't think it is actually, but it could be seen that way. That's also available to me. So I can go to a variety of stores and pick what I need to do and get the kinds of healthy foods that would be helpful to me. So that's another one. We talk about food deserts where the grocery stores in poor neighborhoods are not there anymore. And I've seen that in my old, back when I go home. I grew up in Idaho in a predominantly Latino community, and they have lost all of the stores in that area, have just gone out of business. And so they have to go further out to do that. And if you don't have a car, for example, what's the bus system like? Is that accessible? In COVID right now, we're seeing that Latinos and Black community members are dying at higher rates. I'm sure your students are studying those sorts of things or looking at those things. And again, a lot of it has to do with their frontline workers. They're living in crowded conditions, things like that. So housing, is it lead housing? Is it safe housing? Is it a neighborhood that has good police presence? And that's obviously a really scary thing to talk about right now. Police are not always seen as safe, and it can be seen as dangerous, in fact. So those kinds of things that impact the environment where people live and that therefore impact their health. Those are just a few that I mentioned. There's a lot more. And people in the public health can tell you more about that.
Right. I appreciate you expanding on that. I know that's something that's really important, and oftentimes, the questions I get are related to that and kind of expanding on it. So I really appreciate, you taking some of your own personal examples,
Yeah.
for our audience. Okay, so outside of your career,
yeah.
What are some of your biggest passions in life, and why?
It's so funny because people who know me, have known me probably the last 20 years or so or less, will say, this is so funny. And I actually have people come to my house just to check it out. My niece lived with me for a while. So family is one of my passions. I have 20 some nieces and nephews. And so they range from in their mid 30s, maybe a little, or the 40s, all the way down to 10 or 11. And so I love my nieces and nephews, and they're a great part of my life. And we travel together. We've traveled to Europe. We've traveled to Greece. We've traveled a lot of places together, Nicaragua, those sorts of things. So I find that as the kids get older, we do a lot more fun stuff together. So that's great. And it's also helpful to get to the zoo, for example, with kids, rather than just showing up by myself. It's kind of a weird thing. So family is really important. And then the second thing is I actually became involved with dogs, strangely. My niece that lived with me has epilepsy, and she needed a service dog. So I was not into animals. I really have never liked dogs, never liked any kind of animals. And then we had to get this dog, and Theo is a golden doodle. We got him as a puppy, absolutely fell in love with him. I remember feeling like the Grinch, and my heart just grew and grew. And that was it for me. I just fell in love with the dogs. And so now we have a second dog, and her name is Maya. And so Maya is my dog, and Theo is my niece's dog. So we just now dogs. So people come, my family comes to visit, other friends, they just are shocked that I've become this lover of animals that I've never been before. So I think what's nice is that I continue to grow, and as people mature, and you can still change and find new things to care about. So that's my passion right now.
And now you're a dog person.
Now I'm a dog person. Now don't push me to be a cat person, but that might happen someday. You never know.
I noticed at a previous stop in your career that you co-developed a master's program on intercultural leadership. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that program and how you would tailor it to what's going on today in our society.
It's I think it's perfect for now. I think it was before its time, to be honest. It really was about how do you think about, so intercultural leadership, we developed that to really talk about how do we begin to understand another person's perspective and or create ways to open conversation and dialogue so that you seek to understand versus just trying to wait till the end so you can say your next comment.
Sure.
It's really saying that you're not going to use incendiary words and to be open to changing your mind. You might actually change your mind about some things. And then leadership development was really about how then do you lead organizations? How do you lead endeavors, whatever they might be? So we had students who were pastors. We had students who were community organization leaders. We had teachers, for example, all in the program the years that I was there. And it was helpful to them as they began to lead then to be able to teach principles of good communication, servant leadership, those sorts of things for their work, their place of work, along with assessment and all the other pieces that you need to have. But that was really critical. And I think today, even here at Fox, we're trying to teach our students how to have difficult dialogues, but understanding, in our faith perspective, that the other person is made in the image of God. And so you respect and dignity and love has to be part of that conversation because this person is made in the image of God and we respect that. And so just how do you have these dialogues? How do you engage with conversation? Then how do you systematize that kind of philosophy or create a climate that would support that is really critical. So we're doing that now with faculty. We're doing that with students. And, it's a challenging time because we live in the sound bites. We live in the world of social media that you can just write things or type things on a post that you would never say to a person's face in the past because you see the hurt or the dismay in their eyes. And I think we're losing that. And so I worry about that, or not worry, but think about that a lot. And then I think that intercultural leadership masters was probably premature, but I think it's definitely the place that we would do it today. In fact, we are doing some work with that. The colleagues that I work with there, we're looking at it as more certificate based, and we're not sure how far it's going to go yet. But the idea of making bites of it smaller, so it's not a master's program, but rather a certificate program that you'll be able to get through. So hopefully more on that later.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Finally, from your perspective, what message would you like to leave alumni and the broader OSU community with today?
I found that, I guess I just would say to our students at OSU and specifically our students of color and first generation students, that college is really the place where you get to explore these ideas and to have strong conversations with other people. That not to hold so tightly to your beliefs, but to explore them. Open your hands and explore what your beliefs are. Sort of take them out of yourself and can look at them, and then identify what those might be. What are the principles that you're going to live by? The values, and those you keep, but understand that how those can be expressed are varied. So we have people that come from either very conservative backgrounds in terms of religious conservatism, to more liberal here at Fox. And so what we try to do with our students is to say, what values do we hold in common? And then how those may be expressed may be different, but understand that that's not right or wrong. It's just different in terms of the way those are expressed. And I would say to our students and our alumni at Oregon State, continue to be a partner with Oregon State. There's so much to be found. I think your classes continue to work really well. I think there's a lot to learn and grow from Oregon State, and I just think it's a great institution. So congratulations on being there. Congratulations on being an alumni, and hope students come to our school first, but they can finish their PhDs at your school. How about that?
I like it. Again, you can catch Dr. Hernandez's Alumni Fellows Talk on Thursday, October 22nd at 10 a.m. To learn more and to register for free for her talk, along with all the other fellows, please visit osualum.com/fellows. Dr. Hernandez, thank you again for talking with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to hosting our audience for your talk on the 22nd. And until then, take care and have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.